This is Talladega, and this is the chaos it creates.
The two-car upside down, over and onto Scott Riggs. It's the big.
On lap 15 of the 2002 Aaron's 312, the biggest crash in modern NASCAR history happens, taking out 31 out of the 43 cars. This caused a two-car race to the finish, which Jason Keller would come out victorious, helping him make his way to the best season he will ever have. Although bigger crashes like these are very chaotic, I prefer something arguably more chaotic: the flips. It's relatively common for a superspeedway race to have at least one flip, but what's more rare is when there's two flips in the same race. This is chaos at Talladega. Let's go in time order and start in the early 90s. In one of the 1993 Talladega races, there happened to be two flips, but these weren't your normal flips. They're some of the most destructive flips we've ever seen in the sport. On lap 13 of the 1993 Talladega 500, a big wreck happens in turn 1.
There's Stanley Smith in the middle in the black car. They were running three abreast going into that turn, Ken. There's the car number 1 of Rick Mask.
There is one car that has gone over the wall, as you see in that. Roy Allen's car was involved. The Richie Petty car was involved.
NASCAR driver Jimmy Horton flew over the wall. Although he suffered no injuries, not everyone was so lucky. NASCAR driver Stanley Smith was also involved in the same crash, hitting the wall very hard and almost taking his life. On lap 132, just over 100 laps after the last flip, 46-year-old Neil Bonnet got airborne. After flipping multiple times, he'd end up in the fence. All the fans were okay, and Bonnet himself only had a bruised arm. With Neil Bonnet's TV career, after he crashed, he went up into the booth to commentate the rest of the race. The race had to be stopped for over an hour. Dale Earnhardt would go on to win the race by just a few inches. Now, the rare event of two flips happening in the same race only happened 2 years later.
TNN Motorsports presents live coverage of the Humminbird Fishfinder 500K.
In the 1995 Humminbird Fishfinder 500K, there happened to be two flips. The first one happened early on.
Everybody else is trying to find a place in line, and big trouble in the air. Goes Mark Martin on his roof. No, that is not. It is Ward Burton, excuse me.
NASCAR driver Ward Burton got spun and ended up airborne. He flipped once, landing on his roof and setting off the big one, which took out 10 cars. Burton was okay, climbing out of the car right after the accident. Later in the race, a car gets spun, causing a giant wreck.
And tumbling goes Randy LaJoie over the hood of the 92 Larry Pearson. There goes the page.
Randy LaJoie got the worst of it after flipping multiple times. He came to rest on his wheels. Everybody happened to be okay in the crash. Chad Little would win the race. For the next time we had two flips in the same race, we'd have to wait over 2 decades. In the 2016 Fall Talladega race, there would be two flips. On lap 96, what started as a small wreck would turn into a barrel roll.
48 hit, and Jimmy Johnson goes straight around. Busher, oh man, Chris Busher on his lid and lands back on his wheels. Caution.
NASCAR driver Chris Busher rolled 3 times before going back onto his wheels. 7-time champion Jimmy Johnson was also involved. Carl Edwards was another notable driver involved in the crash. On August 4th, 2006, the movie Talladega Nights would release. The movie comes to a conclusion with Ricky Bobby and Gene Garald both crashing right at the start-finish line. In the movie, they flipped multiple times, then running to the finish line, with Ricky Bobby coming out victorious. Little did they know, 3 years later, The exact same thing would happen in real life. On April 26, 2009, one of the most bizarre crashes in NASCAR history would occur. NASCAR driver Brad Keselowski was having one of his first starts in the Cup Series, and he happens to have a chance to win for the first time. On the last lap, the only thing that's standing between him and the trophy is Carl Edwards. The year before, NASCAR driver Regan Smith passed Tony Stewart on the last straightaway, but he went below the double yellow line, so he was penalized, and Tony Stewart won the race. Knowing this, when Carl Edwards does a bad block, he keeps his ground, and what happens next is history.
Second and picks up. He goes again. Outside. Is Edwards going? Oh, no. He turns him. No. Oh, and that destroyed the front end of Newman's car. No. Edwards will not make it to the flag. Oh,
Brad Keselowski won this race.
Not sure where Carl's going. Maybe he thinks if he runs across the start-finish line, it'll count.
That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing.
He's like a you know how he is. He's an athlete, a marathon runner. I want to finish the race.
and he did.
Yes,
to
he
a
did.
standing ovation from the crowd. Shades of Ricky Bobby.
With only 8 laps to go, Matt Benedetto spun Danica Patrick, causing this crash.
Stanley Steamer.
Whoa, there's
And around she goes.
There we go.
Into Kenset.
Oh, gosh.
Up in the air and into the wall. Hard.
Man, I thought he was going to catch the catch fence back there. The way it landed was...
I am not believing it.
He's fine, boy. You got the window net down.
Matt Kenseth flies up into the air, and Danica Patrick has an extremely hard hit. But in this race, we were so close to seeing something we've never seen before in the modern era. 3 flips. Coming to the finish line on the last lap of the race, this crash happens.
We got shuffled out there, and pretty big wreck there at the end. But all in all, you know, it was an okay day. We led some laps, ran up front, and just got shuffled out in the 20. And I don't remember who else, you know, got tangled up. And then we got back there and got racing where we didn't need to be racing and got crashed. But I guess it still finished.
Kevin Harvick gets airborne and almost goes upside down. Harvick's car rolled across the finish line, destroyed. Brad Keselowski would win the race. For the most recent time, we'd have to go back under a month. On April 22nd, 2023, we'd have the most recent occurrence of 2 flips. On lap 48, Dexter Stacy would have a hard crash into the inside wall. Right after the crash, the cameras cut to the destroyed race car of Blaine Perkins. Then we cut to commercial, and when we come back, we see one of the worst crashes in recent memory. Perkins was in the hospital for multiple days and could not race next weekend. After flipping 6 times, he was able to walk away from the crash. With only 3 laps to go, the big one would happen.
And there goes Daniel Hemrick off the front drag of Chevrolet. And this is the big one here at Talladaga. Oh, my. Got one upside down. Daniel Hemrick got his upside down.
The accident involved over a dozen cars, with Daniel Hemrick getting on his roof. Jeb Burton would end up winning the race, and that ends our story of chaos at Talladega.